There's something about summer in Clark County that makes everything feel temporary. Like the heat presses pause on real life, and for a few hours we all get to pretend things are simpler than they are. That's the magic of our family's annual picnic. Year after year, we gather at my sister's sprawling backyard, complete with uneven stone paths, a weather-worn gazebo, and the massive oak tree the kids all treat like a jungle gym. It's our tradition. A day of sunburns, mosquito bites, too many hot dogs, and the kind of laughter that only happens when people forget to be guarded. This year felt no different, at least at first. I was on grill duty, flipping burgers with a beer in one hand and a spatula in the other, trying to tune out my brother-in-law's unsolicited advice about propane efficiency. My wife, Tracy, was behind me near the drink station, laughing with my sister over something on her phone. Landon, Tracy's son from her first marriage, though I rarely thought of him that way, was hanging near the back porch, pacing a little, like he was working up to something. He tapped a plastic cup with a fork to get everyone's attention. At first, I didn't think anything of it. He's always had a flair for the dramatic. But when the chatter died down and every head turned toward him, I caught a glimpse of something behind the nerves in his eyes. Something serious. I just want to say, Landon began, voice cracking slightly, how much it means to have all of you here, especially my family. His gaze landed on me for a long beat. My stomach tensed. I've made a decision, he said, swallowing hard. Starting next month, I'm changing my last name. I'm gonna legally become Landon Andrews. There was this half-second of stunned silence before the crowd erupted cheers, claps, a few surprised gasps. My sister shouted something about how proud she was of him, and someone handed me a beer like I just won something. I didn't know what to say. My throat closed up. All I could do was smile, and even that felt like it might crack my face open. I nodded, blinking too fast. He looked so proud, so sure. My stepson, calling me his real father in front of everyone who mattered. And just like that, I felt a kind of love I hadn't known I needed. Then came the sound that shattered it. A dull ding from the garden table nearby. It was Tracy's tablet. She always kept it close, even during family events. Said it helped her stay on top of things. The screen lit up with a soft glow. Everyone else kept celebrating. I happened to glance over. It was one of those cosmic accidents where you're in the exact spot you need to be, at the exact moment you wish you weren't. Nicholas, hotel, are you still with him? You promised to stay until morning. That was the message. Plain as day. The hotel emoji hit harder than any expletive could have. I didn't move. For a moment, my mind refused to process what I'd just seen. Maybe it was a glitch. Maybe I'd read it wrong. My eyes flicked back to Landon, still grinning as everyone clapped him on the back. He was soaking in the moment. I should have been up there with him. But instead, I stood frozen beside the grill, heat from the flames warming a body that had gone ice cold. Tracy was suddenly at my side. She moved like she hadn't noticed my face drain of color. She picked up the tablet smoothly, casually, like she'd just remembered she'd left it there. She laughed. Ugh, booking spam. I keep getting these since I searched hotel reviews for the family trip. Sorry if that popped up. Her voice was too light, too practiced, like someone performing a role they'd rehearsed just in case. She leaned in, kissed my cheek. Her lips felt too warm, too soft, and far too foreign all at once. Then she turned back to my sister, smiling, her voice sliding back into laughter like nothing had happened, like she wasn't standing there lying through her teeth in broad daylight. I said nothing. I didn't ask, didn't accuse, didn't react. I just stood there, flipping burgers for people who had no idea that the person I loved most had just turned into a stranger. The rest of the afternoon blurred. I heard people talking around me, felt them slap me on the back, caught glimpses of Tracy playing hostess, her laugh just a little too loud, her smile a little too bright. But it all felt like a movie set. Fake. I kept my head down, kept grilling, kept drinking. A second beer turned into a fourth. But even the buzz couldn't drown the sound of that message echoing in my head. Are you still with him? Still. You promised to stay until morning. The words repeated themselves in a loop, each time cutting deeper. She hadn't denied the name. She hadn't asked, who's Nicholas? She hadn't looked confused. She'd seen the screen, seen my face, and instantly fed me a cover story she had ready to go. And I believed her, at least that's what I told myself, for the sake of the guests. For the sake of Landon. I didn't want to ruin his moment. He'd waited for years to say that, to step into my name, to claim it as his own. I wasn't about to let a message on a screen take that away from him. So I kept playing my part. I smiled. I nodded. I accepted every congratulation, every toast, every "you must be so proud." And I was. I was proud of Landon. But under it all, a different feeling was beginning to grow. Quiet, cold, and sharp. It wasn't rage. Not yet. It was clarity. By the time the sun set on that backyard and the folding chairs were being packed up, something inside me had shifted. I said all the right things, helped my sister carry the extra potato salad to her fridge, clapped Landon on the back one more time, even posed for pictures with Tracy, our arms wrapped around each other like a Hallmark ad. But inside, I felt like someone watching their own life from the outside, unable to intervene. When we got home that night, I excused myself to the back porch before anyone could ask questions. The house was quiet behind me. Landon was in his room, probably replaying the applause in his head, maybe even texting his friends about the big announcement. Tracy was in the kitchen rinsing off plasticware, humming like nothing in the world was off balance. But I couldn't stop staring at the shadows moving across our yard. And thinking, that message, those words, they hadn't just come out of nowhere. It's funny how one moment, one crack in the surface can make everything that once seemed solid start to collapse. Suddenly, all those little things I had brushed off over the past year started circling back, louder now, undeniable. Her sudden commitment to wellness came first. It had started innocently enough, some yoga classes, a new water bottle that went everywhere with her. But then came the running shoes she never let me see her wear, the gym bag that stayed in her trunk, and her insistence on working out late at night when I was already half asleep. Then there were the girls' nights. At first, they'd felt like a blessing. Tracy deserved fun, and I liked the idea of having the house to myself now and then. But eventually, they started happening every week. Sometimes twice. Always with the same vague names: Sarah, Nina, Allison, none of whom ever called the house or came by. When I'd ask who was going, she'd rattle off names fast as if listing them would make them real. There were smells too. That sounds petty, but it matters. The faintest trace of cologne clinging to her jacket, something musky and sharp, something I'd never worn. The kind of scent that doesn't just linger, it announces. It tells a story you don't want to hear. I remembered opening her car door once to grab her keys. She was inside grabbing coffee, and I figured I'd save her a trip. There was a second jacket in the passenger seat, black, expensive looking, not her size. She said it belonged to her coworker's boyfriend who had left it behind during a rideshare mix-up. I believed her. I wanted to believe her. Another time, I walked into her home office and caught her slamming her laptop shut so fast it nearly took her fingers off. She laughed it off, said it was just boring tax stuff she didn't want to bore me with. I didn't press. But that memory hit different now. There had also been a map. That one really came back in vivid detail. A few months ago, I'd glanced at her screen as I walked by. She was on Google Maps, zoomed in on a hotel about 40 minutes away from our neighborhood. I asked if she was planning a getaway. She mumbled something about helping a friend plan a bachelorette weekend. No names, no details. Now I wondered if that hotel had a room number attached to it. If Nicholas had been there. If he was the reason she hadn't wanted me hovering near her screen. Then there was the bank account. Last fall, Tracy had mentioned opening a separate account for personal expenses. At the time, she said it made budgeting easier. I didn't think twice. After all, we were both adults. But eventually, I noticed more and more packages arriving with her name on them. Things I never saw her wear. A dress I never saw again. A pair of heels she claimed didn't fit. Brand names. Price tags that didn't match our agreed budget. And what about the late text one night from an unknown number? It buzzed while we were watching a movie. The message preview read, "Last night was," and then the rest was cut off. She picked up her phone like it had burned her, smiled weakly, and said it was a wrong number. Blocked it right there in front of me. I kissed her forehead and went back to the movie. I was a fool. I sat on that porch for what felt like hours, the breeze brushing past as I pieced it all together. A mosaic of lies, carefully scattered so each one seemed harmless on its own. But together, they formed a perfect picture of someone leading a double life. I didn't feel angry yet. Just removed. Detached in a way that scared me more than fury would have. It was as if I'd stepped out of the skin of my own marriage and was now observing it from some higher place. I watched the pieces click into place: cold workouts, hidden screens, cologne, and false smiles. And that message. Always circling back to that message. Are you still with him? You promised to stay until morning. Nicholas. The hotel emoji. Who was he? A coworker? A stranger? A name I'd heard in passing but never registered? Or worse, someone I already knew. I closed my eyes, trying to trace back every time she mentioned a Nick or Nico or maybe just used initials. But my mind came up blank. And the not knowing, that was what chilled me most. I suddenly felt the need to move. To do something. But instead, I just sat there, my hands resting on my knees, staring out at the dark yard that used to feel like home. I thought about Landon. About how excited he'd been today. About the papers he'd probably start filling out next week. Changing his name. Choosing to carry mine like a badge of honor. And what did I have to offer him? A family crumbling under secrets? A father figure too blind to see the truth? I shook my head, ashamed. Not of Tracy. Not yet. But of myself. Of how easy I'd made it for her. How thoroughly I'd let my guard down. And that's when I knew I couldn't afford to guess anymore. I needed answers. Not speculation. Not hunches. Truth. And I needed it before this house, this family, this entire identity I had built collapsed under the weight of what I was pretending not to know. I didn't sleep that night. I just sat in the guest room, the one we always said we'd turn into a nursery if we ever changed our minds about having another kid. Tracy had painted the walls sage green 3 years ago. Now the color looked faded, like everything else in our house, like every promise we thought would hold. At around 3 a.m., I opened the closet in that room and dug out the storage box we never talked about. It was full of old tech, Tracy's previous phones, chargers, external hard drives. Stuff she never bothered to throw away because it might be useful someday. Most of it was outdated junk. But there it was near the bottom, a slim, pink iPhone with a cracked corner, her last one before she upgraded. I remembered helping her transfer everything to the new one last spring. I didn't expect much. Just curiosity. But when I plugged it into my laptop and opened her old iCloud backup, the download began. It took 15 minutes. And what loaded felt like 15 years crashing down at once. Her messages were still there. Not all, but enough. One thread jumped out before I could even think twice: Nicholas Hotel. I clicked it open, and that's when denial died. There were texts, hundreds stretching back months. Hotel room numbers, late-night timing tweaks, and messages filled with in asterisk made shorthand that made my skin crawl. Room 217. Ask for Julia at the desk, she knows me. Are you sure you want to go through with it again? He's asleep. I'll be there in 20. Save me some of that wine. Photos too. Blurry at times, but unmistakable. One showed champagne bottles chilling in an ice bucket beside a hotel window overlooking the riverfront. Another showed bare legs intertwined under crisp, white sheets. Not faces, never faces, but it didn't matter. I knew her body like I knew my own reflection. And she wasn't alone. Then came the voice memos. I hesitated before clicking play, but some perverse part of me had to hear her voice. I don't know how to explain it, Nick. When I'm with him, I feel safe. But with you, I feel real. I don't have to pretend. Her voice was quiet, tired, like she was talking into her phone in a dark hotel room while I was probably at home folding laundry or fixing something under the sink. Another memo 2 weeks later. Landon is almost a heart now, isn't he? She chuckled lightly. He talks about you more than he talks about Tom. I guess that makes me feel less guilty. Or maybe more. I don't even know anymore. Nicholas Hart. I didn't know him. At least, I didn't think I did. But now I had a last name. A piece of the puzzle. I sat back in the chair, the screen still glowing. My heart didn't race. No tears came. It was worse than that. I felt numb. As if my body was running on autopilot, just gathering facts for a report I didn't want to write. I clicked download all. Saved the messages, photos, audio, and calendar invites. Yes, calendar invites. They were discreet, marked with color codes and titles like spa or retreat, but synced to hotel check-ins and travel times that matched her message logs. I opened the printer app, selected everything, and let the pages stack one by one in the tray. I didn't rush. I didn't even check to see if she'd wake up. I just kept printing until there was nothing left. By the time dawn broke, I had a folder full of evidence and the kind of clarity that only absolute betrayal can bring. No questions. No more what-ifs. Just the facts laid bare in black and white. I opened the safe in our bedroom closet. It still smelled like cedar and dust. Inside was a fireproof bag of documents, our wills, insurance policies, college fund details. I pulled everything out one by one and started sorting. I removed Tracy's power of attorney, her beneficiary forms, her access to the emergency trust. Not out of revenge. Not out of spite. Just necessity. When you find out your partner is living a double life, you don't just mourn the relationship, you go into survival mode. You preserve what's left of your name, your money, your child's future. I made a checklist. Practical, methodical, cold. I wasn't ready to confront her yet. Not when the pain still sat like a stone in my chest. Not when I didn't trust myself to keep my voice calm. No. I'd play it slow. Careful. Quiet. Because now I understood the rules. She hadn't just cheated on me. She'd planned around me. Built a parallel version of life where I was a prop. The husband for photos, for holidays, for polite smiles in public. Meanwhile, Nicholas Hart, whoever he was, had become the man behind the curtain. And somehow Landon knew him. Trusted him. Maybe even liked him more than me. That part stung more than I expected. I had raised the kid since he was 9. Helped him with science projects, taught him how to drive, stood on the sidelines at every soccer game. And all this time, while I was helping him build a future, someone else was quietly stealing the past. I closed the safe, locked it, and put the folder back inside. I wasn't ready to use it yet. But the day was coming. And when it did, I wouldn't raise my voice. Wouldn't scream or beg or plead. I'd just show her what I knew. Let her look at her own words, her own photos, her own recordings, and see if she still had the courage to lie. Because that's the thing about evidence. It doesn't need emotion. It doesn't care about context or tears. It just is. And now, so was I. The week that followed felt like the calm before a storm I had no intention of warning her about. Tracy must have sensed something was shifting. Maybe it was the way I didn't linger at the breakfast table. Or how I stopped asking how her day went. I still smiled. Still made coffee. Still took out the trash and kept the fridge stocked. But something in my eyes must have changed. I was looking through her now, not at her. I didn't want to fight. I didn't want drama. I just wanted out. Quietly. Cleanly. And completely. That Monday, I used a sick day from work. Landon had left early for school. Tracy was still at her gym, or at least that's where she said she was, and I finally had the house to myself. I sat at the kitchen table and opened the folder I'd been building. Evidence itemized and dated. Receipts. Screensh *TS. Printed messages, even the one from the garden table tablet, preserved like an artifact of impact. I knew better than to confront her without a plan. So I started with the tangible. First, the insurance. I logged into our policy portal and removed Tracy as my beneficiary. It took 5 clicks. A simple process designed for peace of mind. I didn't even flinch. My new beneficiary? A foundation I'd quietly admired for years, one that supported the families of fallen rescue workers. It felt symbolic, like turning something broken into something good. Next came the $529 college plan. It was originally opened for Landon, but now, well, trust doesn't stretch that far anymore. I transferred the funds into a private educational grant under my name. A new direction. No ties. No false promises. The foundation would administer it. No withdrawals allowed from anyone but me. I closed our joint checking account next. Moved the funds to a personal account she didn't know existed, one I'd opened years ago for emergencies but never used. Now it had a purpose. I also canceled the shared credit card and shredded the replacement she never activated. After that, I called the bank and started the process of removing her from the deed. Our home was in my name originally, an inheritance from my parents, and only later refinanced jointly. I had the leverage. And now the paperwork. It would take a few more steps, but the gears were already turning. Then I backed up everything. Not just the evidence. Every file, every tax document, every mortgage statement. I bought a new external drive just for this, one I could store in a safe deposit box. I even took pictures of each room in the house, documenting everything. Not in anger. In preparation. When I finished, I went to our photo albums. Tracy had always been the curator of our memories. Big glossy prints of vacations, birthdays, first day of school, snaps *TS. There were dozens of albums. I pulled them down, one by one, and started sorting. I didn't burn anything. That's the stuff of movies. Instead, I carefully removed every photo of Tracy. From every album. From every frame. I left only those with Landon. Those stayed. They were real. They meant something. But Tracy? Her face disappeared from the wedding album. From the Florida trip. From the page titled New Year's Eve, just us. Even the framed photo on my nightstand, the one where we were smiling on the beach, her hair caught mid-laugh, I slid it out, placed it in an envelope, and stored it away. In her place, I added something else. The printed screensh *T from the tablet. Nicholas, hotel, are you still with him? You promised to stay until morning. I placed it in the last slot of the final album. No caption. No explanation. Just the message. Unedited. Undeniable. I closed the album and left it on the kitchen counter next to the fruit bowl, right where she'd see it when she came home. That night I said nothing. Ate dinner quietly. Let her talk about the yoga studio's new schedule, about how Landon needed new cleats, about a neighbor's dog that wouldn't stop barking. She didn't notice the missing pictures. Not yet. But she would. In the days that followed, I continued the erasure. Small things. I stopped replying to her goodnight texts when she stayed out late. Didn't respond when she sent photos from her girls' night filtered sh*ts with names she never introduced me to. I started sleeping in the guest room under the pretense of needing better lumbar support. She accepted it, laughed about me getting old. She didn't ask why her email no longer worked on our joint streaming account. Didn't comment when our anniversary passed without flowers or dinner reservations. On Thursday, she came home with takeout and found the album open on the kitchen counter. She didn't say a word. Not that night. Not the next morning. But I noticed her watching me. Studying my silences. I could tell she was waiting for a fight, a scream, a door slam. But I gave her none of it. What she didn't understand was this. You don't rage at someone who's already been erased. You just leave the outline where they used to be and walk away before they have a chance to redraw themselves. I called my attorney that afternoon. It was time to finish what I'd started. 2 weeks passed like fog lifting off a frozen field, slow, quiet, and thick with the kind of silence that carries too much weight. I didn't confront her. She didn't confess. We just floated around each other like strangers who shared a kitchen. But the album remained on the counter untouched. Not moved. Not opened again. She knew what it meant. And I knew she didn't have the courage to ask. During the time, Landon received his acceptance letter. Full academic scholarship to a preparatory academy upstate. He came bursting through the door with the envelope clutched like a trophy, yelling my name first, not hers. He hugged me hard, lifting both of us off the ground in that way only a teenage boy still full of boyish joy can manage. He didn't even see Tracy standing in the hallway behind us. I couldn't have done it without you, Dad, he said. He called me Dad again. I think that was the last time I smiled and meant it. Naturally, Tracy decided we had to celebrate. Dinner with close family and friends, nothing huge, but a proud family moment, she called it. She made reservations at a quiet Italian place in the historic district. The kind with candlelight and linen napkins. Landon wore a blazer for the first time in his life. Tracy wore a pearl necklace I hadn't seen in years, probably because I wasn't the one who gave it to her. I wore black. No tie. And I brought the box. Not a gift-wrapped one. Just a plain black file box, letter-sized, with a silver latch. Unassuming. Nondescript. The kind of thing no one notices until it's opened. We arrived at the restaurant just before sunset. A private room had been arranged. Long table. 16 chairs. White hydrangeas in glass vases. Tracy beamed the whole way through appetizers, playing the gracious mother, proud wife, attentive host. She laughed too loud. Reached for my hand too often. Pretended nothing had changed. I said little. Just watched. Observed the way she played the role she'd built for herself, charming, elegant, enviable. And I waited. After dessert was served, when everyone was still glowing from the wine and Landon's acceptance letter had been passed around the table for the 10th time, I stood. Cleared my throat gently. Everyone turned. Even the server paused near the espresso machine. I know this evening's about Landon, I began, my voice calm and low, and he deserves every bit of celebration. Landon looked up, eyes wide, smile genuine. But there's something else I need to say. Something I've needed to say for a long time. I reached down and placed the box in the center of the table. I've prepared a small addition to tonight's gathering. Tracy's fork froze midair. Her smile twitched. I saw the panic bloom behind her eyes like a bruise rising to the surface. Inside this box, I continued, are copies of messages, audio recordings, and photographs collected over the past few months. They document a separate relationship, a secret one, between Tracy and a man named Nicholas Hart. A stunned silence fell over the room. One of her cousins gasped audibly. Landon blinked rapidly, his gaze jumping between us. Tracy didn't speak, didn't move. She just sat there, lips slightly parted, caught between fury and fear. I opened the box and removed the first stack, **TS of text messages. Hotel bookings. One of the audio transcripts. I handed them to the person nearest to me. Please, I said. Pass them around. They did. One by one, the mood evaporated. The laughter turned to throat-clearing. The wine soured in their mouths. Chairs shifted. Silverware clinked awkwardly. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't explain further. I just let the truth sit there, like broken glass scattered across a once-perfect floor. Tracy's hands trembled slightly. She tried to steady them by resting them on her lap. She opened her mouth once, to say what, I'll never know, but no sound came out. Landon, still holding his fork, stared at the papers now spread across the table. He read every line. The light in his eyes dimmed. Not instantly, but steadily, like someone flipping a dimmer switch down to 0. Then he pushed his plate away. I didn't look at Tracy again. Not directly. She was no longer the focus. This wasn't her story anymore. It was mine. I turned to Landon instead. You're going to be incredible, I said quietly. At that school. In life. You've got more strength than most adults I know. And you'll need it. He didn't answer. Just nodded slowly. His jaw clenched. A few guests excused themselves, murmuring things about giving space or not wanting to intrude. One woman said she'd call me later. I doubted she would. The papers remained on the table, scattered now. A necklace of shame threaded between dishes. Tracy sat still, her body rigid, like a statue carved from disbelief. She never reached for the documents, never tried to deny it, never said a word. And I didn't need her to. I had already said everything that mattered. I picked up my coat, nodded once to Landon, and turned to leave. I heard her whisper something, a broken syllable, a start of a plea, but I didn't stop. I walked out the door, down the candlelit hallway, past the host stand, and into the cool night air. It felt like walking out of a burning house I hadn't realized was on fire until now. Behind me, the doors stayed open for a moment too long, but I never looked back. The text started the next morning. Tracy kept it short at first. Please talk to me. I made a mistake. We can fix this. For Landon. I didn't respond. She followed up with longer ones, paragraphs packed with half-confessions and emotional detours, written like someone trying to rewrite history before the ink dried. I stayed silent. A few mutual friends reached out, awkward and cautious, clearly roped in by her. One said, "She's not in a good place." Another said, "I know what she did, but she loves you." But none of them were there when I printed the messages. None of them heard her voice whisper to Nicholas in the dark. They hadn't sat through dinner watching a life unravel by candlelight. The day after the restaurant, I met with my lawyer again. I sold the house within a week. Pre-listing offer, cash buyer, quick close. I didn't want the walls. I didn't want the ghost of our marriage hanging around the crown molding. I didn't even take the photos of us down. Let the new owners wonder who we were. I packed only what I needed. Landon's soccer ball came with me. So did the last Father's Day card he'd made me. Crayon scribbles and a shaky "You're the best" in capital letters. Everything else stayed. I moved to another state, no fanfare, no announcements. Just distance. A place where Tracy couldn't find me, and where I could finally figure out who I was when I wasn't her husband. Landon called once. The number lit up my phone while I was unpacking a box in my new, quiet apartment. I stared at it for a while before answering. "Hey," I said. "Is it true?" he asked. His voice was smaller than I remembered. I didn't lie. "Yeah." A pause. "Are you okay?" "I will be," I said. "How are you holding up?" "Mom's not talking much." I said nothing. Neither did he. When he asked if we could keep in touch, I said yes. But when his messages came later, sporadic, hopeful, I only replied with one-word answers. It wasn't his fault, not really. But every word reminded me of a life that couldn't be patched up. Eventually, the text slowed, then stopped. And just like that, the family we built collapsed without ceremony. No big finale, just silence. A year passed. I didn't track the date on purpose. But the day I received the email from the Andrews Foundation, it all rushed back. They were hosting a recognition ceremony in Iowa. I donated the rest of my insurance payout there, set up a scholarship in honor of quiet resilience. They were adding my name to the donor wall. They wanted me to attend. I said yes. The ballroom was quiet elegance, neutral colors, soft music, people dressed in careful suits. I kept to myself, nodding politely. I wasn't there for attention. Just closure. When they called my name, I walked to the stage, accepted the certificate, and gave the briefest speech I've ever made. Sometimes what breaks you teaches you who you are. Thank you. Applause followed me off the stage, but it didn't fill anything. It wasn't meant to. From the back of the room, I felt it before I saw her. Tracy. She was thinner. Hair shorter. She wore a muted gray dress and clutched something folded in her hand, a newspaper clipping. From our picnic, probably. The day before everything shattered. She didn't approach me. Just stood quietly near the exit, eyes fixed on the plaque they had unveiled. I turned away. At my table, table 5, front and center, sat an empty chair. A silver plaque rested on its seat. Reserved for those who understood that family is earned. The chair stayed empty all night. And so did I. But sometimes silence is a kind of peace too.